All right. Bismillah walhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. All right, so we're inshallah gonna go ahead and continue on with our Thursday evening discussion around the pathways to guidance, the pathways towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hopefully, inshallah, everybody is doing well. Hope everyone's semesters, years are going okay. I know exam season is coming up. That's why, by the way, I don't know how many people know, we're hosting like an open study hall tomorrow night at Roots. So if you have exams coming up, inshallah, the space is going to be open from like 8 to midnight. And we're going to have suhba fully operational. So instead of going to some random janky spot, you can come, inshallah, and hang out at Roots. And study here, inshallah. It'll be nice because in between your crippling anxiety, you can go and pray Isha and you can ask Allah for help. And you can't really do that in some random, coffee shop probably. So alhamdulillah, if this applies to you, you're more than welcome, inshallah, to come through tonight or tomorrow night to study at Roots. So inshallah, that's all going to be a good time. So we'll continue on, inshallah. We're getting, now we're moving past the chapter. Last week we spoke a little bit about the idea of true happiness, the idea of what makes a Muslim truly content in life. And the thesis of last week's discussion was that happiness as a believer is not just a mental state of mind, it is actually something that's spiritual. And we spoke a little bit about how a person who is happy spiritually, they are content regardless if they are happy emotionally or not, right? And because grief and turmoil and difficulty, these are things that everybody goes through as a human experience. There is nobody in the world that is exempt from being sad, right? But does that mean that a Muslim, cannot be content? No. The answer was last week that even if you're going through, grieving times in your life as a Muslim, emotionally and mentally, you can still be content with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? That's the conclusion that we came to last week. And this is why being content spiritually with Allah is the true definition of happiness, right? I don't want a happiness that leaves every 5 minutes. I don't want a type of happiness that I enjoy for 10 minutes and then all of a sudden it's gone. I want to reach a type of state where I am just pleased, alhamdulillah, with whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me, right? Regardless if I'm happy at that moment or not. So we kind of concluded that if a person chases the kind of temporary happiness that a lot of the dunya nowadays tries to kind of like push upon people, right? Go seek whatever makes you happy. That happiness will always be fleeting. It will never be permanent. It will always come and it will always go. So a believer thinks beyond that in a more of a visionary way, okay? So alhamdulillah, now we're going to kind of turn our attention in this particular text to a really amazing advice from the teacher, from the scholar. He says that religion, deen, generally revolves around 4 rules. 4 rules encompass the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Namely, he says, al-hub, the idea of love. A person cannot be a true believer if they do not have love within their hearts. Love is something that is necessary in order for a person to truly follow the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because love for something is going to conquer all other emotions that you go through. When a person loves something, they're able to put things past their own desires and they do things because of the love of that person, right? So when a person loves Allah, they will put Allah before they put themselves. And this is the first step towards the deen of Allah. The second he says is kind of interesting. He says is al-bughd. Al-bughd is literally the opposite of hub, which is hatred. Now, why would love and hatred both be necessary when it comes to the deen of Allah? So I'll tell you why. Because if a person loves things, loves Allah, loves the Prophet ﷺ, loves justice, loves fairness, loves good, then they naturally need to despise the opposite of those things. In order for you to love Allah, you actually have to hate shaitan. Sounds interesting, right? But it's true. I cannot have any empathy towards shaitan if I love Allah, okay? If I love truth, I have to despise falsehood. If I love, sharing good news with other people, I have to hate gossip and backbiting. Those two things cannot exist at the same time because one has to choose which one do I affiliate with? Do I like Salah and despise the opposite of which is missing prayer? Or am I okay with missing prayer? So therefore, I'm not completely sold on Salah, right? And whether somebody states this is the next level of kind of realization here, which is whether somebody states it or not, that reality is going to be something that you exhibit through your behavior. How many people have ever kind of experienced those who are like, yeah, I love this, I love that, but their actions are completely the opposite? They're like, man, why does drama always follow me around? Like they're complaining about it, like they hate it, but then like the next second, they're like hitting up their 50 group chats with the same 3 people in just different formats. And, you know, like your actions are not following through with what you're claiming, right? So if I claim, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, I have to ask myself, are my a'mal, are my actions following in pursuit of that claim that I made? Or are my words and my actions completely strange to one another, right? So here he's saying that hub and bughd both need to be present because naturally for someone to love something, they have to be against the opposite of whatever they love, right? They have to hate or despise or disapprove of whatever's the opposite of what they love. And then he says, which necessitates the following actions, al-fi'l, refraining and abandoning, okay? So either then you act upon something or you refrain or abandon it, and this is what's called al-tarq. Tarq means to go away, to leave something, okay? And I'll share something very powerful here in our religion. A lot of people, they think the way to become more spiritually sound is by doing things, right? Like get up and do something. And although this is true, of course, this is definitely true, you have to be proactive in Islam, there is also merit in a person leaving something that's bad for them. You don't necessarily have to actively do something, but you're leaving something that is harmful for you, okay? So for example, if you are in a situation where there are people who are speaking badly about another person in front of you, and you don't have the position or the state in your life at that moment where you can outwardly instruct them or share with them that what they're doing is wrong. Maybe you're not in that position to do so. Allahu a'lam. Allah puts people in different positions in their life. What you do at that moment is tarq. I walk away. I leave it. Why? Because this is praiseworthy. To leave something like that is praiseworthy, right? When you are fasting in the month of Ramadan and you walk by, right, your kitchen and you smell beautiful smells, right? You're walking by it and choosing not to engage in something that would break your fast. Are you actively doing something? No, you're actually refraining from something, right? Sometimes you have to refrain from sending that text message. You're not doing anything, you're actually holding yourself back. So holding yourself back in the deen is one of the most praiseworthy things that will get you close to Allah, because it's not always about doing something. And this is why, by the way, subhanAllah, we actually have this misunderstanding where we think to ourselves, well, if I'm not like getting up and doing something and constantly moving, then I'm like a failure. Like I feel bad about myself. No, that's not true. There are moments in which you're sitting in your house because you didn't go to that gathering that you knew was not good for you, right? And you feel bad. You're like, oh, no, I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting here bored. But think about what you just did. You decided for Allah not to do something for His sake and His sake alone. When your desires, when your social kind of, whispering was telling you, no, go, get in that car and drive. The only reason you stayed and you didn't do it is because of Allah, so you refrained. That means, subhanAllah, and some ulama, by the way, they talk about this, that every second that you spend in kind of absence of something that Allah would be disappointed with is ajr upon you. It's reward for you, even if you're just sitting there. Even if you're just sitting there. Think about that. Think about that. You decided to come to Roots tonight. Let's say that you were invited to some jahiliyyah party, right? And this person, we're not going to call them your friend because inshallah, they're not your friend, okay? This jahiliyyah person, they said, no, come hang out with us, man. Like, we're just going to go chill. We're just going to kick it. And you're like, no, I kind of want to go to Roots. Like, I'd rather go to Roots. I know it's a better place for me, and it's a better way to spend my Thursday night. I'd rather not, like, do something that I'm going to kind of be questioning later on. So I'm just going to go to roots. And you come to roots and you're like, yeah, soul food. Is that like fried chicken? Like, what are we doing here? Like you have no idea what soul food is. You're kind of just like coming, you're like, you see Moroccan mint tea, you see like people behind the suhba bar serving coffee. You're like, what kind of soul food is this? You have no idea what you just stepped into, right? And then you come and some random Bengali imam is giving you a halaqah, right? Like, you're like, this is not what I scoped out my Thursday night to be like, right? But subhanAllah, you kind of downplayed your idea of what this was or like what you were doing, but Allah is now rewarding you even if you didn't really fully understand the scope of it. Why? Because tarq. You turned away from something that was worse. That is something that is praiseworthy in Islam. Never ever take yourself, as a lowly person if you just kind of decide to leave bad things. Leaving bad things sometimes is as beautiful as doing good things. Because leaving something bad is doing something good when you think about it, right? And so hence he says, giving away that which one owns and withholding, refraining from dispersing. Then he says, that being said, whoever ensures all that is sincerely for Allah's sake, their faith will be perfect. And whoever fails to ensure either or all of the said aspects for the sake of Allah, their faith becomes affected accordingly, right? So again, I kept on repeating for the sake of Allah, for the sake of Allah, for the sake of Allah. What does that mean, right? Anybody ever heard somebody say, I love you for the sake of Allah? And then that person gets offended. You're like, oh, so you actually don't really like me at all, right? Like, you're just saying it's for the sake of Allah. No. I'll redefine for the sake of Allah. For the sake of Allah means that you are doing something beyond your own logic or your own personal reasoning. You're doing this because Allah and Allah alone. There is no greater intention than that, by the way. Because sometimes your own logic will be your own downfall. You guys ever lived that experience in your life? You're like, I think. And then your thinking got you into some dumb position that you ended up regretting. Because you thought a little bit too much, right? You thought a little bit too much. You should have just kind of, at that moment, trusted Allah. Of course, we're not saying that, like, don't use your brain. Islam is a religion where you are it's necessary that you use your brain, of course. But at the same time, Islam is a healthy balance of using your brain and using your heart. Not one or the other, but using both. And sometimes when a person only relies upon their logic, what ends up happening is that they're completely absent of feeling Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now they're just completely people who are slaves of their own logic. Well, that doesn't make sense to me. 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 There's a reason why Islam is called Islam. It is submission. At the end of the day, you have to submit to something. You have to either submit to yourself, which is submitting to your own ego, your own nafs, your own desire, or you have to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I, as a person, would rather submit to Allah than submit to my own dumb self. Because I, myself, have made so many dumb decisions in my life. Can you imagine, like, going back in history and thinking about all the dumb things that we did? And you're like, yeah, you know what? This seems like a smart guy to just trust. Like, subhanAllah, one of my friends told me one time, it was so interesting. They're like, if the same level of tenacity was used to kind of vet ourselves as we vet other people, we would actually never trust ourselves. Like, think about how many bad things that you've done in your own life. And if you were to go back and think about it, like, dude, what an idiot. Why did I do that? Why did I put myself in that situation? But if we were to cast that blame on another person, we would never hang out with that person ever again. It's like, oh, that person made me do like 50 dumb things in 2016. Right? Like, we would never befriend that person. But then you turn the mirror, it's like a Black Mirror episode. It's yourself. You're like, oh my God, I did it. That was me. You would never want to hang out with yourself ever again. But the reality is that nafs is merciful for who? For you, for yourself. You're going to cut yourself every sort of slack you can. You're going to give yourself husnul dhan. You're going to think the best thoughts of yourself. So you're always merciful towards yourself. But when it comes to other people, we're super critical, super harsh, right? So what he says here is that, think about this. If everything is ensured, if you're ensuring that all of this is for the sake of Allah, then your faith will be perfect. And for whoever fails that journey, then their faith will become affected accordingly, right? And notice that he doesn't say that your faith will be ruined. He says your faith will be what? Affected accordingly. You are going to get out whatever you put into it. This is a massive point here, Because what he's saying is that, you know, if you choose to come to your roots because your friend is here, right? Not a terrible decision, right? I mean, this is, you know, company attracts one another, right? Alhamdulillah, if I have a friend that goes somewhere, this friend's a good friend of mine, I wanna be with them. Alhamdulillah, that's a good decision, right? And inshallah, the goal is that I find my own niche in here, right? I don't only want to do things because my friends do it. I also want to find my own himma. I want to find my own irada, my own wanting, and my own yearning to be somewhere organically, originally, right? But just like the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he says, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّةِ, that hadith was about a particular sahabi who decided to migrate to the city of Medina because he had a wife waiting for him there. And think about it, the rest of the sahaba were going for the sake of what? For the sake of Allah. We're getting out of Mecca because we need to get out of Mecca. We can't worship Allah properly in Mecca. Now this sahabi had that same thought. Well, yeah, I'd be able to worship Allah better in Medina, but also I got my wife waiting for me, right? That journey became a little bit easier, right? When everybody else is like, oh my God, like I'm starving. That guy's like, I'm actually not starving. I'm waiting for my wife. She's in Medina. So the experience is different. You will get out whatever you put into it, right? So this is what Ibn al-Qayyim here is saying. So he's saying here, the intended meaning is that whatever brings forth pleasure, contentment, and peace is superior to what we merely like or love. Performing the salah brings forth pleasure, contentment, and peace to the ardent devotees who love Allah in this world, due to the fact that salah includes communicating with the only one to whom the hearts are content and exuberated. This is really interesting because this comes from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that we talked about a little bit up over here, where he says that things have been made dear to me and my affections and my pleasure. He says fragrance, and then he says in terms of the word woman, he's saying that like I love my wives, right? When he got married, the Prophet ﷺ, he obviously loved Sayyidina Aisha, loved Khadija radiallahu anha, so he wanted to make it a point that this is something that has been made very worldly for the Prophet ﷺ, okay? And then the Prophet ﷺ also just generally as a human being, he loved perfumes, he loved good smells. You know, everybody has like kind of like a hobby. Everybody's entitled to that one thing that they like a lot, right? And you can splurge on it, inshallah. I have one rule, by the way. A lot of people are like, they come through they're like, Ustad, I have this one thing that I spent like hundreds of dollars on. Am I just like a person of the dunya? And I'm like, what is it? And they're like, it's shoes. And I'm like, is it like that one thing that you're just super crazy about? And they're like, yeah, I don't spend anything on anything. I'm like, you know what? It's okay. It's that one thing. It's okay for you. Okay. Why? Because it proves that it's one specific thing and not like just spending and dunya as a whole. Right. So the Prophet even said, he goes, I love perfume. He used to love misk. He used to love fragrances and scents. And then he says, but Allah has made my affections, my pleasure, and my peace and contentment all within salah. So if it came down to it, between like perfume and my worldly interests, I would take my salah over it. So now let's go back to what he was saying here. He's saying that salah is the one thing that includes communicating with Allah, to whom the hearts are content and exuberated. Souls are settled and minds are at peace. It allows them to bask in the grace of remembering Allah. It dips their hearts in the ocean of humility and submission to Allah's majesty, and it draws them closer to Him, particularly during the state of prostration, which is the closest point a believing slave can be to Allah. Everyone ever heard of that before? That your sajda is the closest you will be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this dunya. There is no closer state that a person will be in other than their sajda to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are a couple of different reasons for this, by the way. One of the most beautiful reasons, and this is kind of very, very like, you know, it's thought-provoking, that what are you saying when you're in your sajda? Somebody, Subhana Rabbil A'la, right? Subhana Rabbil A'la. You're saying, glory be to Allah, the one who is the Lord Al-A'la, Rabbi Al-A'la. He is the all-high. He is the loftiest, okay? And the ulama, they say, you are reminding yourself of the height of Allah, meaning like the level of Allah, the loftiness of Allah, when you are at your lowest. And not only your lowest, by the way, the Prophet ﷺ several times in several ahadith, he stated that the most honorable part of a person is their face, particularly their forehead. That's the most honorable part of your face. It dignifies you. It's your identity. Your face is very unique to who you are. And this is why, like, all of you like MMA fans, you know, you're gonna like hit people in the face for fun. Like, there's a reason why that narration exists. That's why it's questionable, because you can't hit somebody for fun in the most honorable part of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made them with, right? And so this is why, like, slapping the face and like now all of a sudden you guys are gonna reach out to your parent like, yeah, hey, remember that? Like, it's not okay, because that is literally, the Prophet said, it's a sanctified part of your body, okay? And that moment of sajda, you are putting your most dignified, honorable part of your physical being on the ground, and you're saying, oh Allah, you are the loftiest. It is the perfect example of you and Allah's relationship. And you're begging at that moment. You're begging. In your sajda, this is why it's recommended in your sajda, pour your heart out to Allah. Pour your heart out to Allah. If you can't beg when you're in a position of begging, you're not going to beg when you're standing up. Does that make sense? Like, if I can't beg, if I can't be needy, when my head is on the ground, my forehead's touching the mat on the ground, then how am I going to beg and be needy if I'm standing up? You have to perfect the sajda. This is the closest you'll ever be to Allah. So here he says, this meaning manifests in the words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's a very beautiful hadith where he says, Ya Bilal. He says, Ya Bilal, aqim as-salata. Okay, he says, O Bilal, call people to prayer, or establish people to prayer, establish people in prayer at comfort and ease. Call people to the salah so we can be at comfort and be at ease. Okay? So we can be at comfort and ease. This is very beautiful because the word that's used here is called arhana. So we can be at peace. We can be at ease. Okay? Now, anybody know what the word rih means in Arabic? It means like a wind, like a brisk wind, like a breeze. Okay? So the Prophet is using the same word for a breeze to describe the type of relief that comes along with prayer. He goes, Ya Bilal, call the adhan so we can feel like a breeze upon us. And that's what he used to describe salah. But look at what the author is saying here. The author then goes on, he says, this statement informs us that the comfort of the Prophet is found in the salah, where he finds peace, contentment, and pleasure. Compare this state with those who say, let us pray so we relieve ourselves from the burden of prayer. Now he's telling you, subhanAllah, something incredible. Think about something that is therapeutic for you. Just think about it in your head. Something that's therapeutic for you. Like, maybe your therapy is like drinking a matcha. That's like 80% of you right now, right? You're like, you are the reason why there's a matcha shortage in the world, okay? You personally give to that shortage, okay? Make sure that thing is always running out. But think about one thing that gives you therapy. It could be like long drives in the car. It could be going to the scenic spot, right? It could be like going up somewhere and just kind of sitting there, whatever it may be. It could be swimming, it could be running, it could be working, whatever you want to call it, right? Now imagine if a person sees what you see as therapeutic as punishment. Think about it. Say, for example, someone's therapy is swimming, right? They love swimming. Like, their dream is just to like jump in a pool of water and just do laps. That's what they love to do. They feel at peace with it. And to 80% of the Muslim world, because they don't know how to swim, let's just say it, right? There's two qualities to be a Muslim in the dunya. You can't swim and you have to be afraid of dogs. Those are the two things. If you pass that, you are a Muslim. La ilaha illallah. Welcome to the club, right? So we were on a hike, by the way, the other day. SubhanAllah, I'm so sorry to call this out. This person sitting in this room right now. We were on the hike, the Roots monthly hike, and there's a group of sisters that just like arrived at like the place we were hiking, and I just heard a shriek like the day of judgment was upon us. Like, it was like screaming. I was like, oh my God, did Israfil blow the horn? Like, what was that? And I thought it was like a bug. I was like, oh yeah, I guess, right? People are generally scared of insects, or especially they're flying, whatever, right? I found out later in the hike, it was because a little dog walked by her. And I said, what is up with the condition? We should add a sixth pillar to Islam. You have to turn away from dogs. Like, every Muslim follows it, right? Like, we need to cure ourselves. May Allah Ta'ala cure us from the fear of dogs. I, by the way, am saying this as a person who was deathly afraid of dogs until I was like classically conditioned to not be. If you're interested in that story, follow me after Soul Food, we'll talk about it. But there's an entire story, there's lore behind it, and my wife is involved in it. And subhanAllah, it's actually crazy. So But like, you know, he's like, but going back to the point, think about if your therapy is another person's nightmare, right? Swimming will be like that person's like greatest fear because they're like, oh, I can't swim, I'm afraid of it, right? If one person's dream is like, you know, their therapy is going on a run. They love running, right? It's like a thing for them. They seek therapy from that particular exercise. For another person, running is like they have to take their inhaler. They're a mess. Like they hate it. Like they can't imagine what it'd be like to run down a street just for fun. Like is this torture? Is this not like what? I don't know what it is. So imagine a therapy for another person is torture. So for the Prophet ﷺ, what does he say is his therapy? It's salah. Now Ibn al-Qayyim, he goes, now imagine a person who doesn't see salah as therapy, but they see it as a punishment. They think about it as misery. And he says here, only a true devotee finds peace and contentment and pleasure in salah, while the heedless and the neglectful is deprived of it. In fact, such a person finds the salah a difficulty and a burden that makes them disturbed and troubled when they pray, and makes them feel as if they're standing on embers. La ilaha illallah. What a subhanallah, what a mind-boggling line. That it makes them feel like they're standing on embers. What's he trying to say here? When you're standing on embers, like you can't stand still. It's like torturing. It's burning the bottom of your feet, right? This reminds me, subhanallah, of a hadith of the Prophet where he said that there will come a time, okay? Ya'ti zaman ala nas. There will come a time upon people, okay, where holding on to your religion, holding on to your deen, will be like holding on to a burning piece of charcoal. Because it's not going to be easy. You're going to want to drop it at first convenience. Anytime that you have a moment of giving up your deen, you're going to want to do it because of the pressures around you, because of the friends around you, because of your job opportunities, because of just, you know, being called this or called that, or not being able to level up in your career or in your degree, whatever it may be. It's very convenient for you to drop in. The Prophet said that. He goes, there will come a time where that will be a reality. And subhanallah, in this line right here, Ibn al-Qayyim, he says, just as normal as that will be a person who stands in their salah, but it will be like they have embers underneath their feet because they just want to finish. They want to end their prayer. And the Prophet, he says, subhanAllah, something powerful. In one hadith, he said that there's a type of person who is classified as, and he uses the word hypocrite, actually. It's a very strong hadith. He says that this person is susceptible to hypocrisy. Why? Because one of their characteristics is that they pray, but when they go down for their sajda, they peck at the ground. They peck at the ground like a bird would peck at the ground for food. Okay? They naqara arba'a, he says. فَنَقَرَ أَرْبَعَ. They peck 4 times at the ground. They don't even know why they're doing what they're doing. They're just trying to get it over with. So they just peck at the ground like a bird. So when you're making your sajda, you know certain people, and you see them, you're like, when they're in their sajda, subhana rabbil ala, man, it's like you can't disturb them. You could like drop like a boulder next to them and they would even flinch. Why? Because, man, they're at one with Allah. This is why the Prophet one time he said, As-salah mi'raj al-mu'min. He used to say one time that the prayer is the elevation, al-mi'raj. The mi'raj is like your ascension, like you leaving this world. As-salah mi'raj al-mu'min. The prayer is like the ascension of the believer. When they're praying, they can't think about this world anymore. They've been waiting for that prayer. They've been waiting to just meet Allah for dhuhr. They've been waiting to meet Allah for maghrib. Now, on the opposite, the antithetical point of view is that person who's just dragging themselves to pray, so they just, man, I just got to get this thing over with, man. So Ibn al-Qayyim, he says that they're acting like they have embers underneath their feet. They're trying to finish as quickly as possible. This is why such a person prefers a salah that is very short and quick, as he finds no peace or pleasure and contentment in it. I'll give you guys a beautiful analogy for this. I want you to think right now about one of your fondest memories. Think about like a very fond memory of yours, a very core memory that was very, very fond for you, a very wholesome memory for you. And I can guarantee you at that moment, one of the hardest things for you to do is to walk away. Y'all ever felt that before? You know, like the dramatic like videos of like a person leaving their hotel room after 3 days. You're like, so it's really over, huh? Like, Habibi, you just got here like 2 days ago. Like you're out. Like what are you talking about? But imagine, right? Like you're on a trip. You leave town, and all of a sudden you get like the vacation blues, right? Like it's the last day that you're in the city. It's the last hour before you gotta head to the airport. Man, that gut feeling, because you're like, I don't want it to end. And sometimes you're like, oh my God, my flight, I missed it. A'udhu billah, I guess I gotta go back, right? Like you're just wishing for circumstance where you can just go back to what you were doing. So it was ending for you. That was your sadness. Your sadness was that it was ending. Nobody, after a moment where they had a memorable time, is waiting for it to end. That's why, for any of you guys who miss a moment in your life, you miss being with a person, you miss a situation, you miss a place, you miss being, if any of you have been to Umrah, man, there's nothing sadder than saying goodbye to Medina. Even though you're excited to go to Mecca to perform your Umrah, there's nothing sadder than driving away from the Prophet's masjid. It feels so bad. It really does. That's why like the Umrah experience is actually bittersweet. Because for people who go to Medina first, you're like excited because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna go see the Kaaba. I'm gonna go see Mecca. It's the most holy city in the world. But when you go towards Mecca, what you see in your rearview mirror, you see the dome of the Prophet's mosque. You see the white minarets, and they're becoming smaller and smaller and smaller in your rear view, and it's really sad. So it hurts the heart to end that experience. So here he's saying that a person who loves their salah, they're like making any excuse to extend it. They're making any excuse to extend it. Y'all ever seen like elderly family members that just pray for like 40 minutes? You're like, it's Maghrib. What are you doing? It's 3 rak'ahs. How can your Maghrib be that long? Ask yourself the question, does that person want it to end? They probably don't. It's like that phone call that you have with like a friend or like a family member, and they're like, so what else is there? And you're like, nothing. We can hang up. And they're like, yeah, we could, but let's not, right? Like, let's just keep talking. You're like, we're not talking actually. There's nothing to be said anymore. We've covered every topic possible under the sun. Like, yeah, I get that. So what brand is your microwave, by the way? Like, there's nothing else to talk about, Habibi. But they do not want to put the phone down. They do not want to put the phone down. Why? Because they're in love with that experience. The salah for the believer is that experience. That's the goal. We want to get to that level where when we're praying, we're sad when we have to say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. We don't want that to end. We want to be in that state. But he says again here, indeed, if a person finds peace and contentment and pleasure in a matter, one will find it too difficult to depart from it. How true is that? While on the other hand, a person whose heart is empty for the love of Allah and the hereafter is inflicted with the love of this world and its pleasures. They find salah to be the most difficult thing to do and despises it the most when it is long, although he is healthy or she is healthy, has sufficient free time and is not busy with anything else. It is ought to be known too that the salah that brings forth peace, pleasure, and contentment to the heart and mind is a type of salah that consists of 6 elements. Okay, so here he's saying that think about the type of salah that you pray, because again, it will really tell you what you love, right? We began this conversation today about the word love, about hub, what it means to love something. So if we're people who are like, you know what, I'm a Muslim, alhamdulillah, I love Allah, I love salah, I love all these things, ask yourself, am I just like a person who's just kind of like just saying it? Am I just saying it because it just sounds like the right thing to say? Or do I actually enjoy praying? Do I enjoy it? And subhanAllah, you know, one thing, a lot of times we get this question from the congregation, from the audience. We're like, oh, how do I get better with my prayers? How do I get better at, you know, concentrating in my prayer, all the different elements of prayer? I tell people, if you're really a person who aspires to love your salah, then you will actually make the things that surround your salah also really beautiful. Like I ask people, if you want to pray well, I ask them, how well do you make wudu to lead up to that prayer, right? Like if you love a friend who's coming to visit you, what is also something that you end up loving that's not a chore for you? Cleaning up your house, right? Like scheduling like your time with them. Making sure that like there's like moments where you can plan out what you're gonna do the next day. Making sure that your clothes are all clean and laundry's done and XYZ. So those things that you would consider chores are no longer chores, right? Like if you were to ask me, subhanAllah, right, years ago, if I wanted to like put a snotty 2.5-year-old to bed every single night, I would tell you that is the least attractive offer that you have to offer me. Okay? But now you're telling me that I get to do that with my daughter, alhamdulillah, now. It is something that I actually look forward to. When in reality, it doesn't make sense. When I get home from work on a busy day, I want to get home and think about what you want to do. You want to just like face plant into your bed, face first, right? Like just belly flop. Inshallah, there's some food sitting there waiting for you, right? That's like the dream after a long day. For me, I'll tell you what, my dream is that my daughter's still awake so I can spend a little bit of time with her before she goes to bed. For somebody to be like, oh, that's why? Don't you just want to relax? No. So for me, the logic is not really a thing for me. My thing is my love for her takes over that. Now take that analogy towards Allah. If I love Allah after a long day and Isha is a prayer that I haven't prayed yet, Isha is not something I'm like, oh man, I didn't pray Isha. Oh, I have to pray Isha now. I forgot about it. For that person, when they get home from a long day out, their Isha is what they hope to get therapy from. They're like, I need to pray. Because the rest of the day was stressful. The rest of the day was tough. All the classes, the exams, the paper that was due that day. I had to go to a meeting. I had to meet up with somebody and talk to them about some stuff. I had to go home and do some chores, go run around, grab some stuff from the grocery store, whatever it may be. I got home. I'm tired, but I'm excited to pray because that prayer is something that I love. Even if, by the way, a person who's not Muslim, they wouldn't get it. It's like Ramadan. It's like Ramadan. How do you explain Ramadan to a non-Muslim? It doesn't make any sense. Hey, man, Jeff, right? Like, Elizabeth, guess what we do all of March? We get up at 4:30 a.m., bright and early, eat a meal, and then we pray. And then we go back to sleep for like an hour. Then we got to get up and go to class. Isn't that fun? And then guess what? We don't eat or drink all day, not even water. And then at Maghrib, sunset, I get to break my fast. Oh, I get to eat finally. Thank God, right? But then guess what I do after that? I go to this crowded mosque with like 1,000 people and I pray. I stand for an hour and a half. And then guess what? The next day, rinse and repeat. And you're like, non-Muslim friends like, bro, like blink twice. Do you need me to help you? How do you explain as a believer that that is something that brings your heart joy? Logically, does that make any sense? Absolutely not. It doesn't. Why? Because your deen is beyond your own logic. Your iman is beyond your own logic. There's a level of love that you will reach for something that will be unexplainable to the one who does not have Allah in their life. And this is the level of salah that the Prophet ﷺ, he reached. So if we want to reach that level, this is the way that we have to start to think. We have to start to think in our minds about, hey, I don't want this to be a burden. I want it to be a relief. Use your salah as a break from the dunya, not as a burden that takes you away from your actual love, which is the dunya. Okay? And we'll, inshallah, pause there. What we're going to do, inshallah, next week is we're going to begin the conversation of the 6 elements that make the salah sweet. Okay? So today was kind of like theoretical. We kind of spoke a little bit about like the idea and the theory behind it. Next week, inshallah, we're going to be talking about the 6 elements of your salah. I'll give you guys a preview of it. A few of them are right here. First is sincerity. They're all 1 page long. Truthfulness. Then we'll go down, inshallah, and go down with compliance and adherence. Then we'll go down a little bit more and talk a little bit about things like excellence, vigilance for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then we'll talk about, the 5th element, acknowledgement of the favor of Allah. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit, inshallah ta'ala, about blaming oneself for inadequate efforts. So inshallah, we're going to kind of break this down further. It'll probably be the next 2 sessions, inshallah, that we'll cover the next 6 elements in. But we will get to that, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, next Thursday, inshallah. Okay? What we'll do now is we have just about 15 minutes before the time of salah comes in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a anonymous Q&A link for everybody, just like we do every single Thursday. And I want everyone to be able to submit their questions, inshallah. So let me just give me 1 second while I set this up for everybody. And then inshallah, we'll be able to share a Q&A session with each other, inshallah. And again, just like I tell everybody, all of this stuff is anonymous, so don't ever think that, oh, this is like, something that we have to, be worried about, people knowing what my questions are. That's not the case. You'll be able to, inshallah, ask questions anonymously. So if you go to slido.com and if you /soul food, or sorry, if you /soul food May, like the month May, that's going to be the live Q&A link, inshallah. Okay, so soul food, slido.com /soul food May, and you'll be able to log in, inshallah. I'll share it with you guys up here as well. Give me 1 second. All right, so let me pull it up for y'all here, so you guys will be able to, inshallah, throw in some questions. All right. Okay, perfect. So y'all should be able to see it, inshallah, up here. Let me just share my screen again with you guys. All right. All right, we'll take the next 10 minutes to answer some questions, and then, inshallah, we'll break for Salatul Maghrib, inshallah. All right, so you can scan the QR code, or you can just follow the link, inshallah. Okay, so the first person, I'll go through the first few, inshallah, that were asked. The first person who sent in a question, they said, can I still be upset or disappointed with an outcome even though I know it's what Allah planned for me and I know it is what's best for me? So very, very good question. The defining word that's used in this question is the word upset or disappointed, right? Are you allowed to feel a certain way if something happens in your life? What's the answer? Of course. This is what makes you a human being. Allah is not telling you, hey, don't feel anything. Like if you feel love, anger, jealousy, even to a certain degree, grief, sadness, anxiety, nervousness, this is all from Allah. Allah created you with these elements and characteristics and abilities naturally, right? So the question being, can I still feel upset or disappointed with an outcome even though it's what Allah planned for me? Initially, of course you can. Of course you can. I will share it right away. Of course you can feel disappointed or upset a little bit. Allow yourself to feel it. But here's the difference. This is the difference, ready? Just like we talked about last Thursday, there are two different realms of your emotions, right? One realm is your emotion that you feel mentally and physically. Mentally, disappointment is a thing. Of course it is, right? When you fail an exam, right? Can we say that if I fail an exam, it is Allah, it wasn't Allah's plan? Of course you can. But at the same time, can you feel extremely disappointed in yourself that you failed that exam? Sure. So yes, you're allowed to feel that way. What Islam discourages you from is ever being upset with Allah. That's what it is. You can feel upset about the situation, but never feel disappointed or upset with Allah. That is where a person draws the line. Because I'm never going to be displeased with Allah. I can be displeased with the dunya. I can be displeased with like the feeling that I have. I hate feeling sad. I don't like feeling upset. Of course you can feel that way. You can feel disappointed about the outcome, but never ever feel upset with Allah. Because what happens with that is people begin to actually kind of like just implode. Because now the origin of everything to them is now disappointment. Because if I know and I believe that everything comes from Allah, I can never truly be disappointed with Allah. Because Allah facilitated everything. I can be disappointed in the situation, but after I go through my course of being disappointed, and by the way, no emotion lasts forever. I'll be honest with you guys. As a person who's kind of like been through it, no emotion lasts forever. Even some of the most difficult circumstances. That emotion will come as strong as it has taken a hold of you, that emotion will depart. That is the reality. But Allah is there to stay. Now, if you allow that temporary feeling, that emotion, to affect the way you feel about something that's permanent, that's where you can do permanent damage to your life. That's where a person's like, yeah, I feel angry with Allah. And because of that, I don't want to pray anymore. Because of that, I don't want to make dua anymore. That's where you've allowed your emotions to actually run your life. And that's where it's dangerous. Okay? Very, very good question. All right. Um, good questions here. Okay. I'm going to just kind of go ahead and start answering a lot of these. All right. So a person here says, if I have tasted the sweetness of the love of Allah, why do I still struggle with Salah frequently? Very good question. And I'll answer that question. Aren't relationships that are built out of love ever tested? Of course they are. Don't you ever have moments in which you kind of get into a little bit of like a rift with your mother or a rift with a friend that you claim to love? Of course you do. Does that mean that you don't love that person? No. So don't ever think to yourself that every day you wake up, you're going to have this like happy go lucky relationship where everything is easy. No. What is the true test of love? This is going to open up a can of worms, by the way. But what's the true test of love? Like what is the true test that love is actually substantial? It's filled with substance instead of fluff. The true test of love is, can you still love that person beyond the conflicts you have with them? That's the true test of love. And that's why the best of friendships are the friendships in which you disagree with each other sometimes, but you find out that actually kind of brings you closer. You are better friends even after your conflicts. So when it comes to Allah, can you not have moments in which Fajr is difficult? Of course you can. Don't think that this relationship that you have with Allah is going to be like, oh yeah, as soon as I love praying Isha one night, I expect Fajr next morning to be even easier. No. Sometimes that Fajr will be difficult. But the love that you have for Allah will carry you through it. And even if sometimes you stumble and fall, just like in any other relationship, you will get back up and you will say sorry and you will continue on. The love of Allah is a marathon. It is not a sprint. Don't ever convince yourself that it's a sprint towards Allah. It's a marathon towards Allah. Can you keep on getting up and running towards Him in a very, very moderate pace? You don't have to sprint and run out of oxygen. That's not the way that the Prophet ﷺ used to operate. Okay? Very, very good question. Okay, let's go through some more, inshallah. Okay. All right. All right. Let's see. Okay. Somebody said, I overthink a lot about everything. How do I stop from doing that, even though I know Allah has a better plan for me than whatever I'm thinking? Yeah, overthinking is very tough. I know that a lot of people tend to overthink a lot when it comes to their life. And again, I want you to think about something. Overthinking is a byproduct of care, right? You overthink about things you care about. This is the reality, right? Usually things that you don't care about, you're like, you barely have half a thought about it. So the fact that you overthink about certain things, don't think of it as like a horrible, horrible personality trait. Think about it as like, you know what? I sincerely care about this, right? But at the same time, even though certain things are done out of sincere feeling, it doesn't mean that it's always the best for you, right? A parent can feel love for their child sincerely and also parent incorrectly. Does that make sense? Like, and I'm sure all of us have witnessed this as sons and daughters, right? Like my mother, I know she loves me, but sometimes the way that she kind of parents is not like the most conducive of the outcome that she wants, right? So when it comes to your overthinking, right, know that it comes from a place of care and love. You care about the life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. But your overthinking actually may be a detriment to you. It may not be the best follow through. So what I tell people is, don't hate yourself for your overthinking personality. Accept it, that there's khair in it. But at the same time, I have to be able to draw the line where I need to. Okay? And the line usually is, فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. After you have done what you could have done with the capability that Allah has given you, then trust in Allah. Tie your camel first, right? If you feel like there's still something in my control that I can do in this situation, then do it. But you need to let go once you have done everything you could. Because at that moment, that's when you know that like, hey, I've checked off every box on my list. And if even then I still like have trouble sleeping and I can't really do this and I can't operate normally because I'm worried, that's when you know your thinking is a little bit crippling, it's a little bit chaotic, right? This is where I would inshallah share the answer to that. Okay. Let's go to some of these, inshallah. Somebody says, a non-Muslim person asked me multiple times during Ramadan, I feel so bad for you. How do you do that? This made me very mad. How can I handle this situation? Oof. I have an answer, but I don't know if you're going to like it. They said that they feel bad for you and it made you mad. I don't know how you're going to get there, but here's the goal. Get to a level where you feel bad for them, that they don't know what this feels like. Sometimes when you're so confident in what you're doing, you just kind of like reach your hand over on their shoulder. You're like, I just feel bad for you, right? You don't have to say it. You don't have to say it to them because that's like just like extremely spiritually demeaning. But what you have to feel is this level of confidence in your own deen where you're like, inshallah, I want for you one day the same feeling that I have. So I guess what I'm trying to say is just say that I'll make dua for you to your non-Muslim friend. Allahumma, ihdihi, right? Allah guide that person, right? Allahumma hdi. So yeah, try to get to a state where you feel instead of getting mad, almost feel a little bit bad. That person doesn't really know the sweetness of what it feels like, right? Very, very good question. Okay. Is it acceptable to be best friends with someone who is not a Muslim? I suggested that she go to church because of a situation she's facing. So, good question. I don't think that it is unacceptable because unacceptable literally means like, to be quite honest with you guys, in like Shara'an terms, it means like la yajuz. It means like it's impermissible. Okay? It's not haram to be like very, very good friends with a non-Muslim. Then Allah and His Messenger would have said so. The conversation is more so like, is this the best thing for me in my life? And what I share with people is you can have friends of different faiths. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, most of you probably have neighbors around you that are not Muslim, right? And again, the hadith of neighbors that the Prophet ﷺ said that, a person, one of you truly does not believe until your neighbor is someone that you honor. Your neighbor is someone that you revere, that you love, right? And he said that Jibril kept on telling me about the rights of my neighbors, the rights of my neighbors, the rights of my neighbors, until I thought that I would actually owe my inheritance to my neighbors. That's the level of intensity that the neighbor is supposed to kind of, receive from you. And the Prophet ﷺ never distinguished between Muslim versus non-Muslim neighbors because in Medina, who was her neighbors? Muslims, and also there were Jews in Medina, right? The Banu Qurayza, the Banu Qaynuqa, right? All these different tribes of Jewish neighbors that he had. So when it comes to befriending a non-Muslim, there is nothing impermissible about that at all. In fact, there should be, to a certain degree, some sort of interfacing that you do have with a non-Muslim, right? I think sometimes to live only in a Muslim space, in a Muslim ecosystem, sometimes is actually antithetical to like the Muslim movement, especially in America. Because your idea of American life is like, I want to try and influence people in the best way possible as much as I can, either through my actions, right, my influence, my role modeling, or through my words, whatever it may be. So it is not problematic to be good friends with a non-Muslim. I would say it becomes problematic if a non-Muslim is your only friend, right? Like if your only friend is a non-Muslim, then I would say, well, there is a little bit of an issue here because what you're doing is that you're now narrowing what it means to be a close companion, and you are missing one of the greatest elements of being a friend, which is that faith is thicker than blood, right? You don't even have a chance to worship together. And worshiping together is one of the bonds of what you would call being a close friend in Islam. If I don't have the memory of you being able to pray Salah with me side by side, I'm taking away one of the most beautiful elements of friendship in my deen, right? So what I would share with you is, don't feel bad that you're friends with a non-Muslim or close friends with a non-Muslim. What I would just share is, have a friend who is close to you that also is a Muslim, right? That way you don't ever get it mistaken that, friendship is just dunyawi. No, friendships are not just dunyawi. The Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned this in several hadith. He said that you'll be raised with people that you used to be like-minded with in this dunya, right? Those are the people that you'll be raised with in the akhirah. That's a huge statement, right? So something to think about there, all right? We'll answer a couple more, inshallah, then we'll stop for salah. A person said, I'm a revert, but I tend to get upset with myself because I don't feel like I'm praying correctly and Allah is upset with me. Yeah, this is tough. A person who has reverted to Islam, there are people who accept Islam in their lifetime. You know, I always share this with any person who is a new Muslim. You are on a journey to Allah that may be different than other people, right? Because you didn't grow up with the same kind of religious memories that a lot of other people went through, right? Whether it be like Ramadan or Jum'ah or Eid or anything like that. So your experience is very unique. But with that unique experience comes a lot of barakat that people who were born Muslim also don't feel, right? Like, you know, like, you guys ever heard that phenomenon about like, I wish I could go back and watch this movie again for the first time, right? Like, I wish I could go watch like The Dark Knight for the first time, like subhanAllah, like in theaters, like front and center, just like I never watched it before. Now look at that at like a spiritual light. You have a lot of beautiful core memories that people who are born Muslim may not have. How many people who are born Muslim have the memory of like your first salah? It's like, I don't know, 5, 6, I don't know, like maybe like 4 even. My dad was like telling me, yeah, come on, ta'ali, right? Like pray with me. But for a person who reverted to Islam, your memories are so sweet. Your memories are so incredibly core for you. Embrace the unique nature of Allah's journey for you. So if you feel disappointed that like, oh yeah, like the other person who's reciting Surah Al-Fatiha, they're saying it so nicely. They're not only, like I'm reciting Qul Huwallahu Ahad, Qul A'udhu bi Rabbin Nas, and Qul A'udhu bi Rabbil Falaq in each of my prayers. First and foremost, a lot of born Muslims are also doing the same, brother. Okay, like, let's get that straight. Don't think that like just because a guy was born Muslim, they're like, Alif Lam Mim, Dhalika al-Kitabu la rayba fi. That homeboy has not recited Baqarah in years, okay? They're definitely not reciting Surah Al-Mumtahina or Surah Al-Muhammad, or, you know, they're not reciting anything for the middle of the Quran. But what I'll share with you is, think about the quality of your Qul Huwallahu Ahad. There are a lot of born Muslims who may not know what Qul Huwallahu Ahad even means. But because you accepted Islam, your Qul Huwallahu Ahad is stated very purposely, every letter of it. Okay? Don't compare and contrast, right? That's the biggest detriment to anyone's religious journey, is comparing and contrasting with the person next to you. You know, my teacher once told me, the only time it is fair to compare and contrast your journey to the person next to you is if they went through the exact same elemental realities of your life. And that is never true. That is never true. And this is why even siblings cannot compare their lives. Why? Because they experienced your parents at a certain time. You experienced your parents at another time. So even that experience cannot be compared because it's different, right? So this is why the uniqueness of human life is beautiful, and Allah Ta'ala's qadr is the way that it is. Okay? Inshallah. We will, let's see. Well, somebody said something very powerful. What if I find peace in smoking, but I know it's bad for me and I know I shouldn't do it? Allahu Akbar. Allah bless you for being so open about this. May Allah reward you. I'll tell you what. There is something about embedding good habits in your life that will eventually push out the bad, right? So if I find therapy in something that is harmful, right? I find therapy in something that is harmful for me. The only way to start to correct that is actually, subhanAllah, by the first thing you just did is asking this question. By asking this question, you're acknowledging that this is something that's troubling, right? So you took that first step. The next step is now put in certain habits that will be antithetical to what you are currently finding as therapy, right? I cannot find sleep and like sleeping in late and waking up early both therapeutic for myself. They're antithetical to one another. Like I have to wake up early or sleep until 11 a.m. I have to do one of those things. I can't do both at the same time, physically not possible. So the same thing spiritually applies. I can't find lying and telling the truth therapeutic. I have to choose one. So if you're currently in a state where this particular habit is therapeutic for you, think about something that will be applicable to your life that will eventually push this out. And it's not going to happen overnight. It'll happen over months. It'll happen maybe over a year. But the journey has to begin. Yes? Very, very good. Okay? Very good questions. Alhamdulillah. Very, very beautiful questions. Okay? We'll pause there because I don't want to make anybody late for their salah. And we have subhanAllah, we have 7, 8 more questions, and there's no way I can get through that until in the next 1 or 2 minutes. So inshallah, we'll keep some of these for next time. I apologize if I didn't get to your question. Please forgive me. And inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our efforts, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us in these beautiful, beautiful gatherings. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. A couple announcements, inshallah. Again, tomorrow we'll have that Study at Roots program, literally 8 p.m. until 11:30. The space will be open. So if you have exams or if you just want a chill spot to kind of hang out in tomorrow night, inshallah, Roots will be open with coffee, with suhbah, and all that stuff, inshallah. If you are interested in a summer position and you don't really know what to do this summer, please apply to be a counselor at the Bloom summer camps this summer, inshallah. If you want more information about that, please reach out to me personally, and I will kind of guide you towards that opportunity, inshallah ta'ala. Okay? If you're interested in that, please come up to me privately, inshallah, and I will share some information with you in which you will be able to benefit from that. Okay? Sorry? Oh, there is Moroccan mint tea on the table right next to the window. So inshallah, if you like a small little sample cup, it is delicious, mashallah. Please grab some on your way out. We would love for you guys to have a little bit of refreshment, inshallah, before you guys leave. Assalamu alaikum.